what does W1, S1, T1 actually mean?
Now, there's 7 different aspects to the European standard, most of which are just trying to classify the slate, but 3 of them give very specific limits on performance. And so we have water absorption, which is where this W classification comes in for water. We have the T performance, which is for the temperature cycling. And we have the S performance, which is for the sulfur dioxide resistance. So that's the easy way to remember. W for water, T for temperature, S for sulfur. Why those 3 tests? Well, the water absorption, as I've explained previously, is very important to understand how much water can just get in. The more water that goes in, the potential for more damage due to frost. When it comes to T test, for temperature, this is heating and cooling the material over a period of cycles. And what we're trying to do is activate any materials in there that may be susceptible to this cyclic temperature change, including a bit of water as well. Some things swell because of the presence of water. Then as you take that water away and dry them out, they shrink again. But expanding, shrinking, also it's like they slowly work on the material and cause it to slowly delaminate or have other issues such as spalling, where a little bit may fall from the surface, or flaking, or some other issue that you need to know with the material. But the other thing that the temperature cycling does as well is attacks certain minerals. And everyone near enough has heard of the mineral pyrite, also known as fool's gold. And there's 1,000 different types of iron and sulfur that combine in all sorts of different ways to make a huge variety of materials. But pyrite is the one that everyone focuses on. It's actually quite a stable mineral, but it's when it's formed not perfectly that we end up with a range of situations where the pyrite can oxidize and cause slate to tear itself apart from the inside, because as the pyrite oxidizes, it releases sulfuric acid, and that acid then attacks the minerals around it, causing it to expand. The crystals themselves, as they oxidize, release iron. That iron can stain the surface, and also as the particles deteriorate, you can leave holes in the slate sometimes. That's some of the worst examples. But generally, it's this tearing apart from the inside that can reduce the strength to a fraction of what it was in a matter of a few years.
And is pyrite a mineral that's present in all slates?
Every slate, near enough, has pyrite. The reason being is because the majority of these materials were formed on an ocean floor, we have lots and lots of organic matter from fish and other things that live in the sea raining down with all those fine crystals in the original sediments being formed. That all gets compressed. Much of that organic matter will turn to graphite, and there's other things that the carbon eventually becomes. But during the process of breakdown, you get all sorts of bacteria living off of that matter that's falling down, and we get what's called sulfate reducing bacteria. They're pulling out sulfates from the materials that are around them, from the seawater itself, processing it, and we end up with a lot of this sulfate that can turn to sulfide in the geological processes. And it's that sulfide, you just can't avoid it. In nearly every slate formed from a sedimentary rock, you can expect to find pyrite somewhere.
And chemically speaking, is that iron sulfide?
It is just iron sulfide.
Okay.
Add a bit of copper, you get a thing called chalcopyrite. Add arsenic, there's all sorts of other different types of pyrite that you can create with subtle different minerals being added in there, or different elements coming into the equation.
I mean, we'll go into pyrite in more detail in a minute,
Yes.
but just before we do that, just going back to the A1, W1, T1 classification,
Yes.
in your professional opinion, if a slate conforms to those 3, does that mean that it's a quality roofing slate?
It's a good place to start. It's telling you that it's got a good resistance. I never went on to explaining more about the sulfur dioxide test result. This is where you are trying to look at how the slate's going to act in the built environment, because we do have acidic rain. So by exposing the slate to an acidic environment, you're trying to see whether there are minerals in there that will react to that. So again, a good point to try and look at a material like this and see what really happens. And it's quite an aggressive environment. The old standard test, British standard 680, used to dunk it in sulfuric acid. That was just a bit too harsh, really very harsh. So now we expose it to vapours, but it's still a harsh test. And if there's any materials that will react in relation to acidic rain, they will usually start to expand and cause the slate to exfoliate and do all sorts of other things, sometimes splitting in half as well. And in a way, this is exactly what happens when we have pyrite oxidation. I said that it forms acid, and that acid is forming inside the slate.